Hi, for the last couple of weeks I've been working on a new project. The idea comes from the observation that most of the programming we do is mostly GLUI, which is configuring different things, connecting them together, and some slight arithmetics, conditional iteration, and some parameterization. And the problem with this GLUI is that configurations files are really bad at it, and the way we do graphical user interfaces is really bad at this. And so we are left with scripting languages like a Python script, a JavaScript, or like a Bash script. And the idea is to explore a different way of visually doing all this GLUI. And it takes some ideas from text. So text flows from left to right or right to left, from top to bottom, and outside in. Things inside other things are more specific and are related to the parents. So taking all these ideas, I created this kind of outline UI where you can create nodes. It's similar to what the current tools like Notion use. I want to reuse some concept people are used to. But instead of creating text, each node has a specific type. The top level type defines different domains. And when you create a node of that type, all like inner nodes are related to that thing. So let's start, for example, let's say I want to create an HTTP request, and it will create a node, and I have here the specific nodes for an HTTP request. Let's say I will specify many, but you only have to specify the ones that are not the defaults. So I will create many. So let's say I want to make a GET request, and I don't want to specify the URL as text. I want to build a more complex URL. I want to specify some headers. As you can see, they are added to the bottom. And I want to specify how to handle the response. So now I have the URL, and let's say I want to specify the protocol, the host and port, and the query parameters. And here the query parameters, I want two. One will be A. You can see that it works pretty well with the keyboard also. And the idea is that this kind of slim layout makes it easy to use in mobile devices even, but also it will take advantage of all the horizontal screen space that wider screens have by being able to create multiple columns and work side by side on multiple things. So the headers, I can say like a bearer token, I can say, let's say the media type like this, and I want to specify some headers manually. And I want to specify two headers, again, like this. And as you saw, there are these more like low level and high level. Like this one will generate a low level header, but you don't have to. You don't have to write like the key of the header and the bearer word and the space and then the token. You can just specify the token, and it will be merged with all the other ones. So you can have different ways at different levels of specificity or complexity to specify the same things, some things that are hard in current UIs. So the response, I have to specify how to handle it. And let's say I want to parse some CSV, and the CSV, I want to turn the first row into headers. Like if this is the default, I don't have to add it. The idea also is that you only see what's relevant, what's not the defaults. So for simple cases, the amount of nodes will be really small because most of the options will be defaults. So if you're comparing a simple configuration with a complex configuration, you can see quickly which one is the simple one because it's the one that has the least stuff. And the most complex one has more stuff, but everything that's there is relevant because otherwise it wouldn't be there. In modern UIs, you usually see everything all at once, or you have to start like adding tabs and stuff like that to hide the complexity, but everything has to be there. You cannot only add what you need, which is something you do with code. You only write the code you need. You don't call all the methods in a class all the time. So I will just add things to show you, so I can say that don't turn, like here. Also, I'm trying to avoid this form mentality of like checkbox and stuff like that, and having a more human readable way of expressing things. So here I specified a pretty complex HTTP request, and you can collapse and expand and everything. So I can give it a name also. So let's explore some others. Again, I try to explore different things in different areas to see if this fits. For example, there's an API for getting Google Map directions. You can specify many things. I will specify most to show. So you can specify origin, destination, a travel mode, the unit system, waypoints, and if you want to avoid things, let's avoid 2 things. The origin you can specify it either as latitude or longitude, or as an address. So let's specify the origin as an address and the destination as latitude and longitude. I want to travel by bike. I want metric system. I can specify some waypoints I want to go past. Again, the ones over here are the same types over there. And anything that requires a location can use these 2 types. So there's a lot of consistency when you understand how to use things like geolocation or colors or stuff like that. Every other thing that uses those will use the same nodes, so you will be used to those. So we want to avoid tolls. Doesn't make sense for walking or bikes. But so now I just configured a call to a pretty complex API, and I could ideally in the future you will be able to have a playbook or a playground where you will be able to run this. Let's continue with some others. Something complex to specify are complex schedules like cron. So I will add a little bit like the other ones: HTML, Firebase, a schedule, a form. If I have to specify a group of users for permissions, for example, if I want to embed a Google Map or a YouTube video, and these 2 on the bottom are pretty global. You can attach nodes and tags to anything. They are kind of a no operation. But if you want to, for example, if you enter the latitude and longitude by hand like this, and you just want to add a note saying what that is, it's my house or something, you can just add a note. That makes it easy. Also, the tags are going to be used in the future for search and organization. So for HTML, I only created the table because it's one of the most complex tags. So let's start with that. So I can specify a style for the table or a class or any other attribute. So let's say I want to specify an attribute. I want to add some style, and I want to have it a header and a body and a footer. So I can say that the class is, I don't know, table bordered, if that makes sense. And the style here, we enter in the domain of CSS, which if some other part of the tool needs to access CSS, it just expresses that it can, it needs configuration for CSS, and it will use the same nodes. So I want to specify all of them: margin, padding, and border. For margin, I can say top and bottom, 1 and the unit, padding same, border. And for the border, I can specify the width, the style, and the color in different representations: RGB, RGBA, HSL, HSLA. Let's use this one. And as I change the color, it changes here. It shows me the color I'm using. For the head, I'm going to create 1 row that will have 2 columns. The first column will have a call span of 2, and the body will be text. Let's say hi, for example. And here I have a string, and I can apply operations on a string. Of course, I'm applying like operations on a string that's hard-coded, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But the idea is to go from concrete to abstract. So at the beginning, I create a table with all concrete values, and then I abstract it. So I start from a string and apply some operations, and then I introduce some variable there, and then that's an operation that's parameterized. For the second column, I will just have some text. And the body, again, the same. It's a row and 2 columns, for example, and I won't do anything. I can embed a table inside a row if I want. Not recommended, but you can. So it will be the same here. As you can see, it nests at any level of depth. Here I could like collapse some things because it's getting complex. And the footer, I could do something. So as you can see, it's I have HTML and CSS, all the same syntax in quotes. It's a visual syntax, but you can do the same. For schedule, I want to do Firebase at the end to show you some other things. I can say, okay, if cron schedules or schedules in general are complex. So I say I want to run month, day, and hour. And I want to run every month. That's the default, but we could say January and February, for example. And I want to run on weekdays. And I want to run every 3 hours. So this is a complex cron expression, but here it's just, you just read it. It's a schedule, months, January, February, days, weekdays, and hours every 3 hours. That's all. I've created already some form builders, and the UI gets really complex with all the options. Here the idea is that you only see what is specified, like in code. In UIs, you may have like 25 options and they are all there and you have to read them, and you cannot see which ones changed and which ones didn't. So here, for example, I can specify the label, the clear identifier, the placeholder, and a description, and the format for the number, and a range. So, but if I had a color field that is all defaults, I can just specify the label, for example, and for time, just the format. And so you only see what is relevant and different from the defaults. And if you don't want to see it, you can just collapse it. For groups, I can have like a group of users, and users can have some extra information like an email, or they don't. And you can add like some notes and some tags to the user, like, I don't know, admin, DevOps. And now you can reuse these groups in different places. For Google Maps, there are many options, like you specify the IP key, some level, center, roadmap. I won't add them because you have seen them. And for YouTube, you can specify the start, and if you want to autoplay, if you want to loop, show controls, and stuff like that. So the idea is to create a universal configuration language, but that also can be like allows for abstraction, for conditionals, for parameterization, stuff like that. So let's see the first use of abstraction. We have this Firebase thing. We can create a Firestore query or a Firebase subscription. There are 2 different databases. Or in general, we can create a connection. Let's create the tree here. So for a Firestore query, we can write the Firestore query raw, or we can use a builder. So I can say from this document, where order by limit. For where this column and this column, let's do something like this, order by these 2 columns, and limit 100. So if somebody doesn't know how to build the query, they can just specify it like this. If they know, they can write it raw if they want. And a Firebase subscription just specifies a path. Let's specify the root path. And now I can specify a connection. Of course, there are many. I won't add all of them. But now, what if I want to use the same connection for the Firestore query and the Firebase subscription? What I can do here is I can pin this connection, and this UI may change in the future. I want to link it here. So say I want to link the connection over here. And you can see, let me collapse some things. You can see that there's a link here in the connection. This is the same as this one. Let's do the same here. So the link option will show all the pinned nodes that are relevant to this position. So now if I edit this connection, this is the same. And if I click here on the link, this icon says that this thing is not here, it's linked, but still you can interact with it. And it will update every other place where it's linked. And if I click the link here, it will show me like the reverse links. Who is also using this? So we can say that it's the link is in Firebase, in the Firestore query, and in the Firebase subscription. Like it's outside in, from the inner node to the outside node. I think it's more readable. So now I'm using the same configuration in 3 places. But let's say that here in the Firestore query, I want the same configuration as here, but I want to change the API key. So what I can do is I can use this Derive section, and I can say like use this linked node, but apply a change. It's like a patch, or like inheritance of configuration in a sense. So it will take everything from the linked node, but it will apply later some local changes. And the local changes are basically anything you can do on the linked node, you can do here. So I want to specify a new API key. So now here I write a new API key, and it will reuse everything from the linked node, but it will apply some changes. This is really useful for reuse, because sometimes you have like some basic configuration that is common across many things, but only one thing changes, like the name of a table or something like that. So with this linking plus deriving, you can do that. And there are some other things, like you can collapse all the childs of something and things like that. So this is the current status. The next steps are providing different views. Like you will be able to add an extra column, and you will be able to specify different perspectives for these nodes. For example, you can say for nodes that know how to display themselves, you can tell it to display. So for example, this HTML table will appear like a table, the YouTube video, the Google Maps will appear like the things they are. And you can also inspect them, inspect the output. For example, in case of the Google Maps directions, if you display it, it will display the route in a Google Map. But if you inspect the output, it will output the JSON of the API request and will give you the JSON response back. And will also specify events. If for example, in forms, if the user changes a field or clicks a button, you can inspect the events that happen. So the idea is to merge this configuration and builder and allow to create different things that you can deploy into a server or run into your browser as an application. But these are the first steps. And I'm really interested in knowing what you think about this, because I'm exploring different directions, and I would like to know which directions you find interesting. Bye.